See a lot of people jumping the gun, wanting to get straight back into the market. And I've had like 3 or 4 calls this morning already. Am I getting back in? Is this the end of the correction? Guys, my answer remains the same. We're not nowhere near the end of this correction. That's why I'm not ready to jump in with my money. The good news is I'm going to show you exactly when that correction is going to end though. So I'm not ready to deploy any money yet. And I'll show you when I'm going to deploy the money. But then I'm going to show you how we are about to turn straight after that happens, and that's going to take us into the last part of the actual bull market. Or wait, actually, I'm not even allowed to say the last part of the bull market. And the reason why I'm not going to say the last part of the bull market is because, look, I've been contemplating making this video for a long time, but I just never had the guts to come out against what everybody else is saying. Because right now, the consensus view is that the cycle's about to end, and it's about to end in October this year, or maybe November this year. And I've been delaying coming out and saying, look, there's no way this cycle is going to end in 2 to 3 months. We're just nowhere near the end of the cycle. And I just held out. But now I've come to a point where I'm going to come out and I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. And that is, there is just no way that this cycle is ending in October. In fact, I think this cycle is going to carry on for much longer than we originally anticipated. So I'm coming out and I'm doing that today because I've actually got the data points to show why I'm changing my thesis on when the cycle will end. I was originally in the camp that said that the cycle is going to end in October, in which case we would have had 60 days left this bull market. I'm now coming out and I'm saying it's going to be much longer than you originally thought. So you better hold on tight because it's not ending anytime soon. And that's what I want to show you today. I want to show you those data points. So big show. I'm back. I lost a few days of my life, but here I am. You only want to know what happened in Amsterdam. Literally 2 days of my life, I don't remember. Anyway, well, lots to talk about. We'll get into it in the big part of the show. I don't know, someone says, stop trying to predict the future. What goes up must come down. Well, yes, what goes up usually does come down a little bit, but sometimes it stays much higher. Also, I've got to try and predict what's happening for the rest of the cycle because that's why I'm here. That's like telling a doctor, don't tell me what may or may not be wrong with me. I'm here because I'm trying to predict what's happening for the rest of the cycle. And let me tell you, I think that after today's data points, you're going to be as pleasantly impressed as I am, saying that, you know what, where are we rushing to? Everyone's talking about the fact that there's only going to be like 60 days left in this bull market. If you're calling the top for October, end of October 2025, that means you're giving us 60 days from today or 58 days from today to actually get the top of the cycle. I'm going to show you why that's absolutely impossible and why the cycle goes on at least until December, but maybe even past December, maybe even towards next year. A very long and very extended cycle. That's basically what it is. So good news and bad news, obviously. Good news is the cycle's lasting for a long time. Bad news is I don't think we're at buy levels yet. But to you guys, that shouldn't make a big difference. I'll explain to you why. I doubt that any of you guys are sitting now in a pile of cash. And if you are, geez, how did you do that? Because everyone that I know is close to fully invested on the market or mainly invested in the market. And if you are invested in the market right now, this is not a time to be buying and it's not a time to be selling. You're pretty much in no man's land. Fear and greed is pretty neutral. There's no panic and there's no euphoria in the market. Then what are you deploying the last of your capital for? So that's exactly where my headspace is. I don't see any reason to deploy capital. In fact, if anything, I see us maybe going slightly further down in September. I know that the critics will say, oh, but we touched the bull market support band. Yes, the bull market support band was exactly one of the data points that I'm looking at. That's my next data point, which is the SMA 50. And that one is probably going to meet us at about 100, 105. And that's why, to me, I keep my base case that I think the end of this correction is around 95,000 on Bitcoin and around 3,500 on ETH. And that's my data point, right? That's my data point. That's where I think it's going to end. And it kind of looks very similar to Ben Cohen's thesis, because what Ben's currently saying is he's saying, look, now that ETH has run the prior all-time high in August, I think ETH will drop back to a 21-week EMA. ETH's 21-week EMA is it's going to be somewhere around 3,500. Which is kind of exactly where my levels are. My levels are 95,000 on Bitcoin, which, by the way, is this level over here, which is the 50 SMA on Bitcoin. And if you go to it on the weekly, by the time I think we'll catch up, it'll be about 100 or like somewhere around 100,000. So that's my thesis right now. I don't see us going straight back up in a line. And if we do, that's great. I'm just not the buyer at this level. The reason why I say I'm not the buyer at this level, if I was not in the market at all, then it's a very, very, very different thesis, right? I've got no exposure to the market. I want to get into the market. Then I would maybe start getting a little bit of exposure here, just in case this correction was not a real correction and we just touch the bull market support band. But in the case that I'm right and we actually break down below the bull market support band for a while, and we then turn around and basically go up, I want to have my dry powder for those opportunities over here. Right now, there's no opportunity. So to deploy the dry powder that you have remaining in an environment where there's no opportunity, it's almost like you've got 6 bullets left in your gun, right? And you're in some kind of battle. And then you go out and you take shots when there's no shots to be taken. That's a very bad strategy, right? The strategy says that if you've got very few bullets left in your gun, then make sure that every single bullet that you shoot is the one that's going to hit, right? And in this case, I can't tell you that I'm comfortable that this is a shot that's going to hit. Why? Because we're in no man's land. Fear and greed is in no man's land. The market is completely lost. I want to be buying panic and I want to be selling extreme greed. And right now, we're not in panic and we're not in extreme greed. So right now, the best trade for me is just to sit back and do absolutely nothing until something actually plays out. If we go back down, which is, by the way, my thesis, we're going to go slightly more down, that's great. Then I'll pick up, with whatever money I've got left, I'll pick up the bargains that happen here at the extreme fear part of the cycle. If we go up again and people start getting euphoric, I'm 95% invested anyway, and then I've got 5 to 10% of my money left for opportunities. So right now, you ain't going to get me back into the market. And I highly, based on the people that I see here in the chat, I highly doubt that any of you should be getting back into the market, because I know all of you, because you've been here for a long time. Joanne Perry, I see her here every day. Hans, I see him here every day. I see you guys here every day. And I know that if you guys are here every day, the majority of your money is already invested, which means that you've got the minority of your money left. If you've got the minority of your money left, use the minority of your bullets, the minority of your money, to make sure that you guys use the bullets when you've got an amazing shot. And right now, to be honest, there's no shot. So if you are taking the shot, I don't know. I don't think that's going to be in your favor. Speaking of taking shots, there might be a shot that we're going to take soon. That's on WLFI. So WLFI launched yesterday, right? And it went all the way up just before the launch to about 40 cents over here. It's come straight back down to 0.23. I remember I said to you guys, I think it's going to open somewhere around 20-25 billion, which is exactly where it is happening right now. So let's keep watching that trade. I think if it goes closer to 20 cents, that's probably a good level for us to actually start buying. I did see yesterday that a lot of you, even though it was Labor Day weekend, I see a lot of you made money out of the news terminal. And to be honest, I actually had to shut down the news terminal today. Let me actually get it back here. The reason is it's becoming too addictive, and I can't work. The problem is that I can't work. Every time I hear that noise, I'm always reaching out to see what's happening on the news terminal. By far, the most addictive kind of trading I've ever had. So you can kind of see it's been going absolutely crazy now. That's the terminal. Let me just make sure that our sound is correct here. And then you guys can hear the terminal every time the terminal actually starts beeping. It was beeping quite a bit. It's starting to beep again. I see a lot of people actually have been posting the gains that they've made in the news terminal. So like this 246% there yesterday on World Liberty Fire, another 80%. Because yesterday the news terminal was going crazy with World Liberty Fire stuff. So lots of people actually ended up making money. It's the most addictive experience that you can ever have. For those of you that missed it, basically what it does is it breaks news quicker than anybody else and allows you to trade directly from the terminal. So for example, if this news comes out and it's something good on Cardano and I wanted to trade it, I literally just go bang, and within milliseconds I'm actually in, but I don't actually want to be in a Cardano trade, so I'm quickly going to exit that trade. But you can see the whole idea here is speed. Now, one quick point about the news terminal before we carry on the show. So as you know, this terminal is going to cost $599. We did a launch special, which is $99 for the first 3 months, and then $199 for as long as you remain a member. At the end of this week, this will go up to $99 for the first 3 months, and then $299 for as long as you can remain a member. So this is the last week that you can get the $199 forever deal. Remember, this is a $599 product. So if you want to try it, you should go sometime this week and get it, because then you'll pay $99 for the first 3 months, and then you'll pay $199. After that, you'll pay $2.99 if you don't sign up with the link this week. So please, if you want to try and sign up, sign up. In the meantime, I'm going to switch it off because as you can hear, it's going absolutely crazy. Can you hear it? It's going absolutely crazy. Let's just see what else is coming up. Okay, Polygon, a lot of others. Okay, I'm going to switch it off because if I don't switch it off, we're not going to have a show here, and we really want to get to the show. So, as I said, I'm looking for the correction. Seasonality is actually also on my side. By the way, guys, if you could hit the like button, that would really, really, really help me because I wasn't here yesterday. I was on the flight back from Amsterdam. The algo kind of thinks, oh, maybe he's off, and so it doesn't circulate the show as much. If you smash the like button, then it just tells the algo that I'm back and that I'm here in my normal time. So please, if you could, just hit the like button. It really, really, really helps the distribution. Anyway, going back to it. So I said, look, I'm not comfortable buying now. I think we're in a bit of a no man's land. The seasonality has got me thinking that we might actually go down. And again, I don't really look at these basic numbers, but if you look at the post-halving year, if August was positive for ETH, in the post-halving year 2021, September was negative 12.5 and 2017 was negative 21.65. So generally, if in September of the post-halving year, that's really not a good month for altcoins, right? It's also not a good month for the stock market. In fact, September is the worst month for the stock market. Don't ask me why. It could be because everyone's away in summer, and then when they come back, they've had a long time to think, and then they come back and they dump their stocks. But then logic would say that they dump the stocks because they kind of like go back in their vacation. They go, wow, you know what? I really want to be out of Apple, but then I should be in Microsoft. And that's not really what happens. Generally, in September, we have the worst month for stock markets. And so, I mean, this is another data point which basically says that if you had a good August, and in September, that you generally have a bad September. So it says a really good August could actually meet trouble in September. When the S&P is up in August more than 1% and at least 5 times all-time highs like 2025, the following month of September has never been higher. So seasonality favors a bad stock market month. It also favors a bad Ethereum month, which means bad altcoins, which kind of means bad for our bags. At the same time, what you're also seeing at the start of September is the market's starting to worry about some kind of uncertainty. I don't know what it is, but what you can see is that the market's starting to go into gold. And actually, if you look at silver's one of the most incredible charts that I've actually seen. It actually is the craziest cup and handle that you've ever seen. I don't know if we can actually, let's try and get it here. So that's the cup and handle that's currently forming on silver. I mean, it goes all the way back down to 1981. So, I mean, it's still quite a long way to go. You need to get to 50 on those levels for it to be a real cup and handle, but it does actually look like it's going that way. There's also the first rate cut since Trump's come into power. That's forecast now in September. And also, if you look at this, the Bitcoin dominance chart tells me that Bitcoin dominance, if you look at the RSIs, actually needs a bounce. So when I put all those things together, I say, look, I'm not one of these people that cares about whether September is positive or negative because my time frame is never around the calendar month anyway. And your time frame should also not be around the calendar month anyway. I mean, 2 days ago was August. Today we're in September. Who gives a shit? My Bitcoin bags are my Bitcoin bags. I'm still holding them. I didn't think once, hold on a second, it's the 1st of September. I'm not a fund manager. I'm not reporting into anyone. So I don't really need to know exactly when what the calendar months are, right? But statistically speaking, it looks like September is generally not a great month, specifically in the post-halving year, not for stock markets and not actually for Bitcoin either. And so, as I say, I did see people that were rushing into buying right now and kind of saying, look, we'll never get a chance to see Bitcoin under 110,000 ever again. Hold your horses, Tiger, hold your horses, because I really think that this is not a buying market and it's not a selling market. And if it's not a buyer's market or it's not a seller's market, Amsterdam flu. This comes from all the way from Amsterdam. Greetings from Amsterdam. So the ISM papers in 15 minutes, urgent. Yes, the retail will push it up. So yes, so gold is up, and actually someone actually said it correctly in the chat. Let's see if we can just look at the price of oil. So oil also slightly up. So just generally, September's not looking amazing. I wouldn't go into September going, here we go for new all-time highs. I think it's just going to be another one of those chop sideways months, maybe slightly down. The good news is, though, that we usually bottom at the end of so if I look at history, and this is from Dan, Crypto Dan, actually I spent some of the Grand Prix in Amsterdam with, he says, statistics say that Bitcoin sets its monthly high or low within the first 12 days of September 80% of the time. So the good news is that within the next 2 weeks, we'll kind of find our direction. If it's a high, then it'll set its high and it'll start going down. And if it's a low, we'll generally find the bottom towards the first 2 weeks of September. And then the rest of September is actually a bit of a recovery. So we can expect quite a lot of turbulence here in September. And so right now, that's why for the last of the money that I've got, I'm not ready to actually deploy it. I'm not exiting any positions, right? Because I do think that the most exciting part of the bear market of the bull market is ahead of us. But I'm certainly not rushing to buy right now. As a rule of thumb, and I know it's not like the most innovative, wow. As a rule of thumb, I mean, just don't deploy money when the fear and greed is sitting anywhere in the middle. Deploy money when the fear and greed is sitting at very, very, very fearful, and get out when it's telling you it's at extreme euphoria. That's pretty much where it is, which means that right now, not rushing into September. I'm holding my bags, making no big changes. I mean, my bags are pretty much like the best bags of the cycle. Athena, Hyperliquid, Pump, Solana. I'm holding those bags, right? I'm holding those bags. And if you go to Botsfolio, you can actually see exactly what I'm holding in my portfolios. It's all there. I'll leave a link for you guys below if you want. But this literally tracks all my portfolios in real time. So you can just go to Explore Portfolios, find Crypto Man Runs portfolios. Here they are. And you can literally see what I'm holding in my ETH bag and my Sol bag, etc., etc. See my meme coin bag. They're not really performing very well, but the rest of the stuff's doing fantastically well. Anyway, so that is the outlook on September. But I want to talk about something that I think needs to be spoken about, and that is the end of the cycle. Because everyone's got this thesis that if we follow the 4-year cycle, if we carry on following the 4-year cycle, just like over here, then actually this cycle should end very, very soon. In fact, by October 2025, this cycle should actually end. And I want to just see if I can pull up another chart. I did ask the guys to send it to us. Here it is. So everyone's saying that if this cycle follows all the other cycles, then this cycle is actually about to end, right? And we've probably got another 60 days or 58 days left in the cycle. And for a while now, I felt very uncomfortable with that. But I hate to be the one to come out and say this time is different. Because what I do know is that every time you say this time is different, it's actually not different. However, there comes a point where you got to say to yourself, you know what? The data points just don't line up with the fact that we're going to top in the next 60 days. And if the data points don't line up with the fact that we're going to top in the next 60 days, then the only conclusion is that either we've topped, and I know we haven't topped, or that this is going to be a very different kind of cycle. And if it is going to be a very different kind of cycle, it's going to be a much longer cycle than we initially anticipated. We always said that the 4-year cycle would be used as our base case, but not our Bible. We always said it's like a base case and not a Bible. And what you know is that you know that the cycles are just naturally actually getting longer and longer, right? So if you look at the halving cycle, the first halving cycle was 367 days. Second one was 526 days to the top. The third one was 548 days to the top. So just naturally, just anecdotally, you can kind of see that the cycles are actually getting longer and longer, or that the 4-year cycles are actually getting longer and longer. My thesis is that this year, the 4-year cycle basically died. And I'm not going to give you a reason why. It could be because of the fact that there are institutional flows, that they're not institutional flows. That's not really how I make my thesis. I just remember being here for the 2 last cycles. And I remember what the markets felt like 2 months before the end of the cycle. And the markets didn't feel like this 2 months before the end of the cycle. And that got me thinking around, hold on a second. If this doesn't feel like 2 months before the end of the cycle, then maybe this cycle isn't ending when everyone says it's ending. And then I started looking deeper into the data points to say, well, hold on a second. If this doesn't feel like 2 months before the end of the cycle, then where are we in the cycle? And that's when I started digging deeper and realizing we're nowhere near the end of the cycle. And up until a certain point in August, I kind of thought, okay, we could recover and all these indicators may just start hitting. But now we're in September and none of the indicators are hitting. And if none of the indicators are hitting until September, then when are all these things actually going to happen for us to be able to end the cycle? Because there's still a lot of things that need to happen between now and the end of the cycle, if it's going to be the same as every other cycle. So let's just assume that this cycle is going to be the same as every other cycle, and let's just eliminate the time part of it. So we kind of know, okay, look, we would peak in October 2025, but let's eliminate the time out of it. A whole lot of different things have to happen in order for the cycle to have topped. And if the cycle is going to top in 60 days, then where are these things, and why the hell haven't these things actually happened? Let's talk about some of these things that should happen and haven't yet happened. I mean, the first thing that needs to happen is we need to get fear and greed very high for quite a long period of time before the end of the cycle. Because remember, if market cycles have got nothing to do with fundamentals. Market cycles are merely the oscillation of markets between extreme fear and extreme greed. And when you get extreme fear for a very long period of time, usually that actually marks a bottom, right? And you can see it over here. Let's go to 2021. You see, we were at extreme greed for a long time. We were there from August 2022 all the way to January 2023. And even you can go even before that. You can say from May 2022, we were in extreme fear for a long time before we actually turned. Market cycle tops are no different in that regard, where you want to get to extreme greed, which is somewhere around 80 or 90. We've been nowhere near 80 or 90. In fact, the highest we've been on this indicator in this cycle is 80. That's the highest that we've been, and we just touched it and it started to come down. In order for the market to top, you need to be around extreme greed for quite a long period of time so that people are coming here greedy. The cycle, the end of the cycle is usually known as a blow off top. What a blow off top is that people have been in extreme greed for so long that you simply cannot lose when you come to crypto, or at least that's the mindset. Anyone that comes to crypto will get rich. Just get to crypto and you'll get rich. We haven't had that season yet. So unless that season is going to happen between September 2nd, where we are now, and October 31st, which is in 7 weeks, then this doesn't really line up. In fact, we're going down now. We need to be up here, like we were over here, and like we were over here, and we need to be up there for quite a long period of time. And so just anecdotally, that says to me, hold on a second, that's not the end of the cycle. I mean, look at where we are now on fear and greed, and look at where we were in 2021 when we actually topped. So 2021, we had been at extreme greed from here, from November all the way to March, March. We had like one drop and then it went back up. Okay, now that can't happen in the next 50 days. So from that point of view, pretty much it doesn't feel like it's the end of the cycle. Look at the YouTube views, because it's fear and greed going up. The extreme greed brings people into crypto. When they come into crypto, they download the Coinbase app. So what you get is you get a period where the Coinbase app climbs and climbs and climbs, right? Until eventually it gets to number one. It's at 322 now. So unless you think that in the next 7 to 8 weeks, it's going to climb from 322 to number one in a straight line, I mean, that would be the quickest time in history that would actually happen. And so again, it just doesn't tally up that in the next 7 weeks, this cycle actually lands up ending. Look at the YouTube views. 2017, you can't really see, but look at 2021. Look how long the herd were here before we actually died. Like, look how long the herd were here before we actually died. The herd haven't even started arriving yet. So are you telling me that we're going to go from here, and since this time is a much bigger cycle, we're going to go much higher than these YouTube views, and we're going to get there in the next 7 weeks? When in the last cycle, if you take from where we are now, and I'm giving us the benefit of the doubt, assuming that we're here, 18th of July, and we only topped in the end of December. That's 6 months. It feels to me like the top is a minimum of 6 months away, just based on this metric and this metric and this metric. But those aren't the only metrics that I'm looking at. Let me show you a whole lot of other metrics that I'm looking at that show that this cycle is not going to be your typical 4-year cycle. So the next metric that I look at is just pretty simply the ETH chart. And I look at the ETH chart and I say, okay, let me just go back to the last ETH chart. If I take the previous all-time high on ETH, which is this number over here, and I say, okay, what happened since ETH broke its previous all-time high? The previous all-time high was $1,400. We broke it over here. And then from this point, it took us until we topped. It took us another 287 days back to that 6-month number, right? 6 or 7 month number. So from the time ETH broke its previous all-time high, it took us 6 months until ETH topped. Okay, ETH just broke its previous all-time high, and not even, you could kind of say it almost broke, but it was kind of rejected. I would expect that for the last part of the cycle, the most aggressive part of the cycle, we would have at least 4, 5, or 6 months where ETH is trading above its all-time high. And it's not doing that at the moment. And so to me, that's another indicator that says there's got to be at least 6 months left in the cycle, right? And you can see it over here. From the time that ETH broke the all-time high, that's when others starts breaking the all-time high, right? Now, are you telling me that what took 6 months in 2023, because in 2021, like this period was a 6-month period. If I look at others, and I look at others around February 2021, so 2021 Feb, somewhere over here, this whole thing still happened after ETH broke its all-time high. ETH has just broken its all-time high, and others is nowhere near breaking its all-time high. I don't see how that happens in 7 or 8 weeks. Sorry, it just cannot. I understand fast parts of bull markets. I understand aggressive parts of bull markets. I just don't see how it happens in the next 7 weeks. So from that point of view, from a retail hype and a retail mania point of view, from just using basic fundamentals and adding a little bit of math to it, kind of saying, look, can we get retail here? And can we get them excited? I mean, can we get them to peak euphoria in 7 weeks? I don't know how you can do that. You need ETH to break all-time highs. You need the market to gain momentum. You need the altcoins to outperform. You need to get others outperforming ETH, right? So you want to get others, or you can actually say, for this one, you want to get total 3 divided by ETH. And you want to say total 3 has to outperform ETH for quite a long period of time. Let me actually find it. Let me actually find that one for you guys. So total 3 needs to outperform ETH. Let's see, 2021 total. Oh, that's total. Sorry, I'll put total. It should be total 3. Total 3. That should be a slightly different chart. There we go. So you need total 3 to outperform ETH. And that only happened from February 2021. But that went on all the way until the 18th of April. And then it came down. But then it carried on going up until July 2022. That is what you need for this market to break down. Let me show you another chart that also told me that we're not topping in the next 7 to 8 weeks. So let's look at the Bitcoin dominance chart. And everyone's talking about this Bitcoin dominance chart. Yeah, guys, no, bros. It's falling off a cliff. It's falling off a cliff. Okay, you're right. It is falling off a cliff. I'll give you that much. Let me just get rid of some of these. You don't need bull market support bands here. And you don't need the SMA 50. And you can basically say, well, look, dominance is falling off a cliff. Yes, it needs to fall off a cliff. And in 2021, from the time that it started falling off the cliff, which was here, let's just say here, until the time that it actually fell off a cliff and actually bottomed, was almost a year. It was 6 months to the first bottom, 6 months again, and then it was another 6 months, and there was another 3 months, no, another 5 months after that, 322 days in total, until we got some kind of meaningful bounce in Bitcoin dominance. Now, we haven't even started breaking down here. Are you telling me that this chart is going to break down? It's going to get to the bottom over here. It's going to do its little squiggly majiggy thing. And then it's going to start going all the way up. And that's not going to happen in 7 weeks. Impossible. Just this leg over here is going to take 6 months to come down. This Bitcoin dominance isn't going to go down in a straight line. It's going to take over 180 days. And that's 6 months. Okay? So this again says, this chart over here again says to me, there's no way that the cycle tops in the next 70 to 80 days. In fact, you'd be talking about 309 days from the breakdown to the bottom, which is exactly what happened in the last period. Around 309 days from the breakdown to the actual bottom. That would bring us again in at least another 6 months left, 6 months left of the cycle. Then I look at a couple of other things. The next thing I looked at is interest rates. And I kind of said, okay, well, let's look at interest rates versus, let's look at interest rates. Let's just get rid of all these simple moving averages and just look at interest rates. Okay, let's look at interest rates. Which chart? Okay, that's that chart. So I look at interest rates versus the Bitcoin price. And what I can see here is that here we cut the interest rates close to zero, and that's when we got the massive bull market. Okay, so what you can see is when you're cutting interest rates, markets usually go down. When you're increasing interest rates, that's when you're increasing, that's when the markets continue to go down until you actually bottom. We're just at a point where they're just starting to reduce the interest rates. Like there's going to be a rate cut now in September. There's a 98% chance. And then we're still on like 4.4 to 4.25%. Do you see a cycle top at a 4 and 4.25% interest rate when interest rates are on the way down? I just don't see it happening. Let's look at the previous other data when interest rates were on the way down. Here, interest rates were on the way down and they bottomed, and that's when we actually made the top here. Here, they were on the way up, and then we bottomed during this whole process, and then they started cutting and the market started to move up. So unless you're telling me that the market's pricing in this whole downward move in the next 70 to 80 days, I tell you that there's no way that this can happen in the next 6 months. There's a few things that need to happen when you're looking at interest rates, right? When you look at interest rates, when interest rates start coming down, that's when manufacturers get more bullish about the economy, right? If you're a manufacturer and interest rate starts moving down, you see the government loosening their wallets and basically pumping up the economy. That would translate into the ISM reading. So the ISM, we've spoken about this before, but it's a measure of, it's the Purchasing Managers Index. It is a closely watched economic indicator that tracks the health of the manufacturing sector. Now, above 50 means that that they believe that the economy is expanding. Below 50 means that the economy is contracting, right? We haven't even got into economic expansion in this cycle. In both previous cycles, when we went into economic expansion, that's when the altcoins actually went for their run. So you can see that's the first run over there, and that's the second run over there. And what actually happened here was that the ISM broke up above 50 and carried on its upward trend. And that is when the altcoin started running, because that signified expansion, right? Well, we haven't broken up the ISM above 50 yet. And if we haven't broken up above 50, are you telling me that we're going to go above 50 and then reach the top of the cycle, which is typically when the altcoins start to bottom, and then go back down? I don't know. You may be right, but then things are going to happen really quickly. So in the absence of that happening, in the absence of interest rates starting to drop, what I think is going to happen is the interest rates are going to start dropping. When the interest rates start dropping, the ISM is going to break through this. That's going to push sentiment back up, which is exactly what we're actually waiting for. When the sentiment goes back up, that'll give us the run in total 2 and total 3 and the rest of the altcoins. That ain't happening in the next 75 days, I promise you. That's 6 months, maybe even 12 months away. Then I look at some other indicators. Now, this is the BTI, which is a combination of all the other indicators put together, right? And I want to just show you what I'm looking at here. I look at the absolute levels of BTI. BTI takes all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Takes 12 other indicators and tells you when they're all going to pop, right? I look at this one and I say, well, look, it's not going to pop over here, right? It doesn't feel like it's on the up and it's getting heated. Now, if it did, let's just look at what happened in the last cycle, right? This period over here where it started to go into the heated zone until the time that we actually topped the first time round was 126 days, close to 6 months. The second time round was a little bit less, but it was 60 or 70 days. That was the second time round. So we could repeat that over here. Right now, all these indicators are pretty low. So if you're telling me the cycle is going to top, then what you're saying is that in the next 60 or 70 days, we're going to get to those levels from levels where we're not even revving the car at the moment. So that's, I think, shows us we're nowhere near there. If you look at all the top indicators, 100% of them are currently telling you that we're nowhere near a top. This one is 24%, this one is 57%, this one is 58%, this one is 60%, this one is 10%, blah, 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 blah. This one, like none of them are telling you that you're about to top. So unless your bet is that we go from 0 to all of them telling you we're about to top, and then you want to live in a period, you don't top on one day, get the top, yeah, we've reached the summit and then we come down. You actually want to stay at the top for quite a while because that's when the market is getting new people in, right? And so that ain't going to happen in the next 60 to 90 days. And the same thing here on this this Bitcoin bull run index. It's at about, right now, it's trading at about 70. It typically tops when you get to about 97, but it usually stays there like at least for a month. So January 8th in 2021, let's see from the time it broke 80. So that was January 2nd, 2021. and the market only topped in May 17th. That's, you see, you got to stay in the elevated levels for quite some time. Even here, like from the time we hit 80, which was on September 2nd, we only landed up topping 2 months later, 2.5 months later, and then the altcoins only landed up topping probably 3 or 4 months later. So unless you think that all of a sudden, I don't know, Trump's going to do his press conference today, because remember, Trump's been missing in action, according to one of our researchers, Andre. He's been very, very, very concerned about Trump's whereabouts. He actually wanted us to do a whole show today about Trump's health and how Trump might actually be sick. Because apparently Trump has been, Hardish, you won't believe it, bro. They're covering this up, this whole thing about how Trump's actually sick. This guy called 𝗙𝗃𝗪𝗏. It's all 𝗙𝗃𝗪𝗏. He's basically 100%, him and Andre are in the collaboration. They're in cahoots. He's speaking today at 2 p.m. And there was loads of bruising on his hand. Yeah, there was bruising on his hand. I saw that. So that's another one of those things. Now again, if we just look at the global M2 money supply, I don't see any major downturns in the global M2 money supply. And this chart is already 60 days ahead of us. So for the next 60 days, which would take us to the top of the cycle theoretically, if the cycle was ending end of October, I would see that. The last thing that I look at is leverage. And leverage usually shows you when the market's getting too heated, right? And right now, if I look at the two types of leverage in the system here, number one, I look at the Bitcoin versus altcoin leverage. And remember, this is like my Bible indicator for when this cycle is actually going to end. This tells me when the altcoin open interest is higher than the Bitcoin open interest, right? So when the altcoin open interest goes above Bitcoin, that's usually when we top. We had one of those tops here in January. Where was the January one? Here. And we had another one in March. This one's nowhere near a top. So unless you think it's going to top in the next 60 days, and then it would need to happen way too quickly. And so I look at that. I look at some other indicators. Just by looking at this rainbow chart and looking at how we usually go up in the cycles. If you look at 2017, we always get towards the red part before we top. Happened here in 2017. Happened in 2017 here. 2017 here. And then again in 2021, we almost touched the red. We're still in blue. If we're still in blue, are you telling me that we're going to go now in a straight line up all the way towards red? It just doesn't sound right. It just doesn't. It doesn't feel like that's where we're at in the cycle. And so, what's my conclusion here? My conclusion here is to say, look, up until now, I've kind of said, look, my base case is that we're following the 4-year cycle. Anything beyond the 4-year cycle is actually a bonus. Now I'm kind of saying, and I'm saying, look, there's no way that the cycle's topping at the end of October. There's at least another 6 months left in the cycle, but even more, maybe even a year. I believe that we still have to experience the rate cuts, and that's only going to happen when Powell actually leaves, or when they know who the Fed's replacement is. That's when the market's going to start pricing those things in. That ain't happening in the next 60 to 90 days. And so, yes, we will continue to watch the 4-year cycle. We will continue to do that. But that's not going to be my base case anymore. My base case is that the cycle has to be much longer. Now, what does that mean? A longer cycle could actually mean that that we don't get such an aggressive bull market. Because if the bull market did have to end in 60 to 90 days, we would need to get all these savage moves in the next 60 to 90 days. I think that it's not the case, and I think that let's just maybe work on a base case that's 6 months out from here, and kind of say, look, if we were supposed to end in October, let's make a view that we're ending towards February, March as the base case. And then let's carry on watching all these indicators, basic indicators. Like, let's just carry on watching the ETH chart and just see if ETH starts putting in new all-time highs, if total 2, if total 3 or others starts putting in highs against ETH, if the Bitcoin dominance starts breaking down. Those are the things that usually indicate the end of the cycle. And those things are not 7 weeks away. And therefore, my whole thesis has to basically change and say, hold on, someone just posted something in the newsroom. I think that the ISM, here we go. So the ISM actually just came out while we're speaking about it. It came out and it's at 48.7. So, oh, for God's sake. Hold on, let me turn off my ad blocker. Hold on. I don't want your ads, but because you got me by the balls now, because everyone's watching, I'm going to actually take off the ad blocker. So ISM is at 48.7, so it still hasn't broken that 50. So there's a long way to go between now and the end of the cycle. And you know what? I'm going to come out and say it because I know a lot of other people don't want to come out and say it, but this time is different. And the cycle ain't ending in October. I'd give it a minimum December, Jan, Feb. And even that, I think, is being a little bit too conservative. Actually, the cycle is going to go on for a lot longer. So anyway, that's the base case. I know a lot of people are thinking it, but are too scared to say it because then you'd be speaking against Ben Cowan and you'd be speaking against every other person on crypto Twitter that has brainwashed themselves that this cycle isn't different. This cycle is different, and I think it's going to end much later. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. In the meantime, I want to actually switch on my news terminal. Let's actually, because now the show's finished. Not actually finished. There is some more alpha that I want to give the guys. But for now, I do want to just switch on the news terminal, 247. Seriously addictive, this thing. Seriously, it's addictive. Yeah. So the deal, as I said to you, there is a launch deal on 247 terminal. It is $99 for the first 3 months, but then after that, if you signed up in the first couple of weeks, you pay $199. If you don't sign up by the end of this week, you'll still get the $99 for 3 months, but then you'll pay forever. You'll pay $299. So eventually it's going to get to its normal price, which is $599. But until then, we're discounting it because we want to get a couple of you guys on to actually try it out. If you want to try it out, there is a link below. We'll keep it going here. There's a link below. Here is the link over here. Use this link, otherwise you won't get the special. Otherwise your subscription you won't get the right subscription. You won't get the right thing. So you got to use this link over here. Sign up. You can cancel whenever you want. So sign up at the $99 price. If you sign up now, you will get the $199 for as long as you remain a member. If you don't and you wait until next week, this number is going to become $299. And then the week after that, $399 until eventually we get to $4 and $5.99. So really, I think if you want to try and use the terminal, it's the best investment you'll ever make. Because if you're spending $99 and you can't catch, see, that's news came out. Trump administration said to announce Space Command headquarters move to Alabama from Colorado. Okay, that's not a tradable piece of news. But when there is a tradable piece of news, you can literally get in within milliseconds. Like that one would have got you in within 92 milliseconds. Bang. Okay, now I'm long Trump. Okay, but now I got to just get out Trump. Okay, so you can see, okay, now more. So you can see it's basically dropping news every couple of seconds. And then I can just trade immediately into the news. I've connected up my exchanges, as you can see here. I can connect Bifin, Blowbit, Blowfin, Binance, Hyperliquid coming this week. And then you can trade directly from those exchanges. And you preset the size that you want to trade, which means that you can act first. And people in the community are making tons of cash using this. I'm telling you, they're making a shitload of cash. I mean, I showed you some screenshots. There's screenshots. And it becomes addictive. That noise, which you've just heard, you always want to know what's the news. Banana gun is the fastest. Okay, we know that. Yeah, lastly, let's just see how the grid bots are doing, specifically this World Liberty Fire one. It should have made a lot of money on the grid. So the grid arbitrage is making like 93 point. Okay, so it's just below my starting price. It's a good time to enter if you want to enter a bot, this is a very, very, very good time to enter, is the World Liberty Fire bot. It's up. But it's up on the grids. Check it out. See, because I made a whole lot of grids, it's made $500 on the grid. It's down on the P&L because the price is slightly lower than when we built the bot. This is probably the best bot to get into now, is to just go and copy the settings on the WLFI bot. To do that, just go to Pinex, open account, use this link, and then just click on copy the bot, and you'll copy the WLFI bot. That's the one I'd be getting into now. All right, let's watch the news terminal for 5 minutes. It's probably the most addictive thing that we have here. See, every time news comes out, it just tells you what there is to. This is, by the way, the Solana portfolio that we kept in. Yeah. Okay. Native USDT matters. Okay, that hasn't come out yet. All right, guys, I will see you guys again tomorrow. Until then, just remember, we have a long cycle ahead of us. So you got to stay alive and you got to trade well, my friends.